Okay, chapter 8 is called The Anti-Semitic Swindle. Gustav Schwenk became a Nazi at 20 in 1932. He had looked for work for 4 years and found none. He finally took a job as an SA policeman. His father blamed the Jews for post-World War I hyperinflation, and he learned to hate Jews at an early age, even though he had never met any. The older Schwenk said that before World War I and what they called the Golden Time, he had 10 suits. By 1918, he didn't have any. When Nazism came around, he felt needed again. Schwenk was the most primitive of the 10 men. He couldn't really remember or digest facts. He may have had some kind of learning disability or low IQ. Except for the teacher, none of the 10 had ever known a Jew very well. The community was fairly separated, and they only met them for business reasons. The number of Jews practicing the faith was declining rapidly, and Jews intermarried. Anti-Semitism became more about race than religion. Before World War I, vacation places for the lower middle class were proud of being Jew-free. They would put signs out similar to the way the South put out no black signs during segregation. Some towns had Jews who had settled there after being driven away from Eastern Europe. After 1933, lots of Jews left the fictional town of Kronenberg and Germany, but most stayed thinking that things would get better. In 1933, the synagogue congregation began to grow again. In chapter 9, quote, everybody knew, quote, nobody knew. 4 of the 10, the tailor and his son, the baker, and the bill collector, said that the only Jews taken to camps were, quote, traitors, unquote, and the rest were allowed to leave with their property and sell their businesses for fair market value. Many Jews left without much money because people knew that they were either leaving or being sent to a camp, and they couldn't collect on their bills. Of the 10, only the teacher wasn't anti-Semitic. Some didn't want to be thought... I'm sorry, I'm having trouble reading my notes. Some didn't want to be or thought they weren't, but they really were anti-Semitic. None of the 10 changed their opinions about Jews after the fall of Nazism. Chapter 10, it was really short, I only have 2 notes here. It was called We Christians Had the Duty. In a conversation with Simon the bill collector, Simon claims that Germans can always tell a Jew when they see one, and claims that Jesus wasn't Jewish. And that was ironic because the person interviewing him was Jewish and they didn't know. Erdem claimed that it was the Christians' duty to persecute the Jews because they betrayed Christ. Chapter 11 is called The Crimes of the Losers. The Allies decided before World War I ended that they would conduct a trial and convict the Germans of war crimes and crimes against humanity. Justice Jackson of the U.S. Supreme Court was the American prosecutor. 12, they called them international, but they were really American tribunals, were conducted by the U.S. on its own because the other allies lost interest. Germans weren't convinced of their guilt and just saw the trials as a consequence of losing the war. Most Germans knew about the Dawes and Young plans for repayment and knew that the less harsh plan of the two had them making reparations until 1988, which they obviously felt was unreasonable. Many had a hard time accepting their punishment because they didn't see the people that they had hurt with the Holocaust. And everyone who visited Germany at the time, well, they say everyone, people who visited Germany at the time commented on the way the Germans whined about almost everything. The Confessional Church of Germany, which defied Hitler, issued the Stuttgart Confession, which is on page 151 of the book, and I suggest you read that. And I'm going to stop there.